He proposed to me in front of everyone, smiled like a man who'd just won, and then, as if rehearsed, leaned in and whispered, "It's just for the video." The crowd laughed. My cheeks went numb, and the ring felt suddenly too heavy on my finger, like a prop someone else had placed there. I remember the smell of the venue, the fake fairy lights, the hum of someone else's playlist, and the way everyone around us pretended not to notice that my future had been reduced to a clip for views. I still think about the exact split second between his whisper and the laughter, the fraction of a breath where I tried to decide if I was going to laugh too, or call him out or run. I chose none of those. I smiled because that's what you're supposed to do at a party when your boyfriend calls you the punchline. I locked eyes with him and asked, without moving my lips, "Are you serious?" He kissed me then, like a seal on a contract, and I felt something small and sour pop in my chest. Later, when the video hit the internet, his followers said it was relatable content. My friends texted heart emojis. I clicked the little heart back like a ghost. My name is Maya, and it's embarrassing to say that I used to think the worst thing about my relationship was how charmingly selfish he was. Charming because he knew how to be tender in public. Selfish because he never learned when tenderness had to be real and when it could be curated. We met at a rooftop bar 3 summers ago. He was wearing a blazer over a t-shirt like a man who'd read an article about effortless style, and then applied it only to his collar. He ordered my drink without asking, said a joke I didn't find funny, and somehow walked away with my number. In the months after, his voice became the background track for my weekdays and the reason I stayed up late on weekends. He had a laugh that made strangers pause and the ability to make ordinary moments feel cinematic. Everyone called him Nate, short for Nathaniel, which sounded older and safer than the rest of his social media aliases. Nate had built a modest audience online. People liked his take on relationships, his unfiltered routines, the occasional prank that never went too far. He called his content real life, which meant it was always edited, condensed, and sweetened until it was easy to swallow. When he wasn't filming, he was planning the next shot, asking what light made my skin glow, what angle made our apartment look like a storybook. He taught me to place my plants where light could make them photogenic. He taught me how to say "we" in public captions, AT first. Red flags appeared like tiny hairs on a glass I couldn't see until the light hit them. He would forget plans that mattered to me, but keep dates that mattered to an audience. He'd tell a story about my childhood and, when I corrected him, tilt his head as if I were the one mistaken. I remember it differently, he'd say, when in truth he remembered what had gotten the better reaction. When I asked about it, he framed it as spontaneity. Who wants the same story twice? He was. I wanted the same story twice. I wanted to matter more than a punchline. We moved in together because it felt like the next sequence in a rom-com he'd been scripting since night one. The apartment was small and filled with things that told his story better than mine. A vintage camera that he insisted on displaying, a bookshelf of paperbacks he could quote, a coffee table scarred by wine rings and carefully arranged candles. My toothbrush lived in a mug he had chosen. I planted succulents in the windowsill and watched him film a cozy morning clip where he made toast and said, "I love waking up next to her." The video was soft, grainy, and half true. I woke to the same sun hitting my face and felt grateful in a way I couldn't explain. The first time I noticed how carefully he rehearsed our life was subtle. A message tone I didn't recognize, a laugh at a time when the apartment should have been quiet, his face lighting up at a notification that wasn't mine. I remember the little black journal he kept on the shelf. I didn't look through it. Who does that and still calls themselves trusting? But I knew that it was there, and sometimes he would flip through it and smile with a kind of reverence people reserve for small, private gods. Once, when he thought I was asleep, he scrolled his phone and mouthed words like he was memorizing a script. "What are you doing?" I whispered. He flicked the screen, hit it, and said, "Just reading." He wasn't lying exactly, but the truth felt nimble around his mouth like smoke. When I tell people about the early relationship, they always skip to the betrayal, like it's the part of the story that justifies everything that came after. But the truth is betrayal is half a punchline and half a slow, weathering leak. There were so many small humiliations before the big one, the kind that you write off because they are accidental and because you want to believe the person across from you. I thought at the time that I was just constructing a narrative, that the red flags were creative tension, and that my doubts were unsympathetic critiques. I thought love could be a film. Beats, arcs, edits that make you look good. He told me he loved me the first time 2 weeks after we'd slept together. He sent me a voice memo that said, "I don't say this lightly, but I'm really into you." It was earnest, the kind of thing you screenshot and tuck into a folder titled Forever. I saved it and listened to it in the dark like a prayer. But even then, when he said the 3 words, there was a qualifier. "I love you," he said into the microphone, "but you know I'm always filming. This is also for the channel." My stomach dipped. "For the channel?" I asked, and he laughed like I had suggested something ridiculous. "Babe, I'm building my brand. If I don't document the real stuff, what are we even doing?" It was, at the time, an honest economy. His life and his career were entangled, but I would later realize that the entanglement had a different gravity than mine. Our friends loved him. He had an intimacy with other people's confidence, a way of making them feel interesting while taking the credit. At dinner parties, he'd mimic someone's accent for a joke, and everyone would clap like they'd just seen a magician. I used to make a grocery list and watch him move through the aisles, making eye contact with strangers, asking about their day, taking a photo, and then tucking it away as social capital. He had an uncanny ability to make people present for him. He invented rituals, surprise coffee, impromptu photo shoots, weekend drives, and people followed. It felt good to belong to someone so magnetic. But sometimes the magnet pulled him toward attention in a way that left my side of the room cold. Once, at a birthday brunch he organized, he stood on a chair and made a toast to the person who always supports my content, my muse. The room applauded, and I smiled and felt that old prick of shame. Muse sounds poetic until you're the one who got reduced to a prop. There were nights when we would sit on the couch and he'd narrate our evening like a host, whispering into a tiny microphone about how authentic we were being. He'd ask if I minded when he filmed, and I'd say no because I didn't want to start a fight. Saying no felt like being a bad sport. Saying yes felt like permission to be invisible sometimes. That we had fights like any couple, but his fights were often performative and mine were thorough. When I got upset about his time with other people, he'd smile and say, "You're insecure." When I brought up boundaries, he'd say, "You're stifling me." When I asked him to change his editing schedule so we could eat dinner without a camera, he'd agree, and then he wouldn't. He learned to deflect with charm. Once, when I told him I felt used, he cried in my arms with the kind of tears that looked made for camera. He would later say, "I can be dramatic because I feel things deeply." The line between sincere emotion and a mood for attention blurred until I couldn't tell whether his tears were real or performance. We kept a joint calendar for months because that's what couples do. Doctor's appointments, rent due, his live streams. One day, I found an event on his calendar titled Collab with Lila at a time when he had promised me a quiet Sunday. Lila was someone I'd seen in his tagged photos. Fashionable, quick with a comment, always in frames where he looked more relaxed. I texted him and said, "Who's Lila?" He replied with a string of heart emojis and said, "Just someone from work." Work, in his vocabulary, was a safe word that meant people who can grow my platform. I tried to accept it. I wanted to trust him because trusting felt like optimism, and because admitting the alternative, that he might be intentionally dividing our private life into pieces that could be monetized, felt like betrayal in itself. The early cracks, the tiny humiliations, the omissions, they piled up like leaves outside a door. I stepped around them and pretended they were decoration. I told myself that the way he deferred to the camera was a quirk. I told myself that we could have both things, a relationship and a platform. He promised me we'd be an honest couple, not a brand, and yet everything about us seemed crafted to look honest. He loved authenticity the way some people love art, from a distance, redeeming it into aesthetics. I thought I could be part of his art while still being person, but the border between muse and human blurred until I couldn't find where I began. Looking back, I can see now how the small betrayals taught me to doubt my own senses. When he posted a BTS video of us that was cut so tightly my laughter echoed longer than my actual words, everyone commented on how cute we were. He captioned it, "My girl always keeps me grounded," and tagged me as if to prove there was intimacy. I felt like a houseplant in the frame. Decorative, alive, but purchased. I remember whispering into his shoulder that night, "That wasn't exactly what happened," and him replying, "It's fine, babe." People connect to the vibe. I wanted to argue that my life shouldn't be tailored to strangers' tastes. Instead, I learned to say, okay, that I lived like that for so long, edited, captioned, and curated without realizing that curation can be a kind of erasure. I kept a little journal too, the kind with a floral cover I always meant to fill with honest things. I wrote short entries about the small and honest moments, the way he hummed when he cooked, the time he fell asleep on my lap, the sound of rain on our window. Those entries were my truth. I kept them under the mattress because sometimes holding onto something private felt like a rebellion. It felt silly to hide a journal, but hiding it became my way of saying, "This is mine." By the time the proposal happened, I had learned to fold my doubts into the corners of our life like receipts. I learned to carry them, not to wave them around. The proposal should have been a quiet, real thing between two people who knew the shape of one another. Instead, it unfolded on a small stage he had rented in the back room of a trendy bistro because he thought the lighting would look great for his channel. He told me it was a surprise for my birthday. He told me to dress nicely. He told me to expect a few friends. He didn't tell me there would be cameras. He didn't tell me that the word surprise meant content. When he got down on one knee, there was a flash from a phone, and somewhere in the room someone said, "Is this live?" He reached for my hand, and the ring was beautiful, the kind of thing people screenshot in engagement announcements. The speech he gave was cinematic. The way he recounted the faults he claimed to love in me, the jokes that landed perfectly because the audience was cued, the way he looked at me like he was delivering a line he'd practiced in the mirror. And then, the whisper, the one that undid me. It's just for the video. The laughter was not mean. It was celebratory. Someone recorded us and then tagged him. The clip would later be reposted with a caption like, "When your boyfriend pranks you with a fake proposal." In their comments, people wrote "plot twist" and "muse energy." That night, I went home with a ring and a television in my head that refused to turn off. He was jubilant, giddy on that kind of high attention gives your brain. I let myself be hugged like I had been before because it was easier than asking for an explanation. I wanted to be the kind of person who forgave immediately, who could laugh and move on. But as I lay awake with the ring heavy on my finger, I felt the weight of the whisper. It was a thin thread that ran through everything after. Through my trust, through our calendar, through the late-night messages, through the way he would later say he loved me, but not like that. There is a peculiar shame in realizing that your private pain is also entertaining. You start to self-edit your own heartbreak because it plays better when it's palatable. You smile in public because the camera will forgive you. You look at blended content and wonder if real life ever looked like that at all. The thing about living inside someone else's narrative is you forget you are allowed to have scenes of silence. For me, silence had been the first casualty. That silence would not stay dead. It would come back in a different form, quieter, more accusing. It would ask me whether I had been brave enough to notice sooner, to leave sooner, to name the things that hurt. But on that night, with laughter still echoing in my ears and fairy lights winking like a chorus, I slept with a ring that felt, for reasons I couldn't name, like it belonged to someone else's story. When I woke up the morning after the proposal, the light looked strange. It was soft and golden, like it always was in our bedroom, but there was something off about it, maybe because my phone was buzzing nonstop on the nightstand. I didn't have to check to know what it was. Notifications. Comments.
Mention.
I could feel the digital noise before I even looked at the screen. Nate was still asleep beside me, one arm draped lazily over my waist. His breathing was even, peaceful. He always slept well after posting something big, like the applause of strangers tucked him into bed better than I ever could. I slid out from under his arm and checked my phone. OMG, this is the most hilarious prank ever. She's such a good sport. I wish my boyfriend would do something this creative. And my personal favorite, you can tell she's low-key pissed, but that's what makes it gold. Gold. I remember staring at that word until my eyes blurred. I wasn't angry yet, not fully. Just hollow. Like someone had scooped out the center of me and left a pretty shell standing. When Nate woke up, he stretched, kissed my shoulder, and said, "Morning, fiancé." I didn't answer. I couldn't, he noticed, of course. "Hey," he murmured. "What's that face? Don't tell me you're still mad about the video. Everyone loved it." I turned to face him. Everyone except me. He blinked, as if that were the most unreasonable answer I could have given. "Babe, it's just content. You know that. I didn't mean it like that." "Then what did you mean?" I asked, voice low. He sighed and rubbed his eyes. "You're taking this too personally. It's a joke. A viral one. You can't deny how good it did. 10,000 likes in 2 hours. 10,000 strangers had laughed at my heartbreak. That was apparently success that I got out of bed and went to the kitchen. I poured coffee just to have something to do with my hands. He followed me, like always, trying to smooth things over before I could fully form anger. "Maya, come on," he said softly. "Don't do this thing where you spiral. You know I love you." There it was, that word again, weaponized with practiced ease. Love. "I just wish you'd told me." I said finally. "You didn't even ask if I was okay being filmed like that." He shrugged. "Because I knew you'd say no. You get anxious when there's a camera. But I promise it's fine. You looked gorgeous." Gorgeous. Entertaining. Marketable. Everything but respected. That was the first real crack. Not the prank itself, but his calmness afterward. He didn't see why I was upset, or maybe he did, and just didn't care to. It was easier to convince me that I was overreacting. Over the next few weeks, something in me shifted. I smiled when the camera was on, but my laughter turned hollow in private. I'd catch myself glancing at his phone when he typed, wondering if he was talking to followers or someone else entirely. I didn't want to be paranoid. I wanted to believe him. I wanted my life back. The one where we cooked together and argued about takeout menus instead of engagement metrics. But reality had a way of slipping through the cracks in his stories. One night, around 11 p.m., I heard his phone vibrate while he was in the shower. It was face down, but the screen lit up just long enough for me to see a name flash. Lila, that same name from his calendar. My stomach dropped. I knew I shouldn't look, but my hand moved before my conscience could stop it. The message preview said, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Don't forget the blue shirt. It's our color." Our colored. My throat tightened. When he came out, towel around his waist, hair dripping, I asked as casually as I could, "You have a collab tomorrow?" He froze for a second, just a flicker, but I saw it.
Yeah.
Lila again. She's helping me shoot the apartment tour. The one you said we'd do together? He smiled, almost pitying. Babe, you hate filming, remember? I nodded slowly.
Right.
I hate filming. That night, I lay awake listening to his breathing again, wondering when exactly our relationship had become an audition. The next day, he left early. I pretended to sleep, so he wouldn't have to lie out loud. When the door shut, I sat up and stared at the ceiling. The silence in the apartment felt like someone holding their breath. Did I wanted to call someone, my best friend, my sister. But what would I even say? Hey, remember that guy who fake proposed to me for clout? Turns out he might be cheating too. It sounded pathetic even in my head. S.O. instead, I opened Instagram. And there it was, Nate's story. Shooting with my girl today. Big things coming. My girl, I clicked on it, and my heart splintered. There they were, Nate and Lila standing in our living room, laughing, clinking mugs, wearing matching blue. She was holding my favorite mug, the one with a chipped rim and a sun design. He had the camera set up right by the window, where the light hit best in the mornings. Everything looked so intimate it made me nauseous. I watched the 15-second clip on repeat until it expired. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I took a screenshot of it, just in case. When he came home later, smelling faintly of cologne I didn't recognize, he was beaming. She went great, he said. You should have seen the lighting. Lila's got an eye for this stuff. I did see it, I said quietly. He blinked. What? Your story. For a second, the mask slipped. Just a flash of annoyance. Then the grin returned. Babe, it's harmless. We're friends. You got to stop reading into things. I'm not reading into it, I said. You called her my girl. He laughed, incredulous. You know what? You're right, that was dumb of me. I'll fix it. Don't be mad. And just like that, the argument dissolved before it could ignite. He hugged me, and I let him. Not because I forgave him, but because fighting felt exhausting. That's how gaslighting works. It doesn't break you all at once. It wears you down until confusion feels safer than confrontation. Weeks went by. The tension became a roommate we both pretended not to notice. I threw myself into work, stayed late at the office, joined friends for dinner just to avoid being home when he filmed. But every time I came back, the apartment smelled like his cologne and someone else's perfume. I started finding little clues. A hair clip on the couch, a lipstick-stained straw in the trash, 2 wine glasses when I'd only had 1. Each time, I'd ask, and each time he'd have an answer so quick it almost made me doubt what I saw. Lila left that. We were testing a product. That's not lipstick, it's food dye. I poured you another glass, you just didn't drink it. Excuses so absurd they looped back around a plausible point one night. Though, something snapped. He came home late, well past midnight, humming a tune and smelling like jasmine. Not mine, not anyone's I knew. His shirt was half-buttoned, and there was glitter on his wrist. I waited until he noticed me on the couch. Where were you? I asked, editing. At midnight. He smirked. Creative inspiration doesn't have office hours. I stared at him. You're lying. He raised an eyebrow. Excuse me? You're lying, Nate. I can smell her on you. The silence that followed was so sharp, I could hear my pulse. He looked at me, not angry, not guilty, just entertained. You know, he said finally, you've been really paranoid lately. Maybe take a break from social media. It's messing with your head. That's when I realized the truth. He wasn't just lying. He was rewriting reality. I'm done, I whispered. He tilted his head. Done what? Done being your prop. For a moment, I thought he'd yell. Instead, he smiled that same PR smile he wore for sponsors. You're tired, babe. Let's talk when you've calmed down. Then he went to bed. I sat there until dawn, watching the light change, my body numb. I didn't cry. I just stared at the ring, still sitting in its velvet box on the table, and wondered how I could have mistaken manipulation for love for so long. A week later, I got a DM from an account I didn't recognize. The profile picture was blank, no posts, no followers. Just a message that said, "You deserve to know. Check his drafts." My hands trembled. I looked at Nate's phone on the counter. He was in the shower again. My brain screamed don't, but my gut said now that I picked it up. Face ID didn't work, but his password was easy, his birthday. He thought he was clever using it backward. When I opened his TikTok drafts, my breath caught. There were dozens of videos, staged arguments, fake reconciliations, behind the scenes of our most personal moments. He'd filmed me crying once, after that proposal prank, and captioned it, "When she can't take a joke." He never posted it, but he'd kept it. Maybe waiting for the right time. Maybe to remind himself how easily he could make me break. That was the night I packed a bag that I didn't leave yet, not physically. I just put my essentials in a duffel under the bed, like a quiet promise to myself, because leaving him would take more than courage. It would take proof, and that proof, I would soon find, was waiting somewhere I least expected, in the voice of someone who'd known him long before I did, his mother. I didn't expect the next explosion to come through my phone speaker on a random Thursday night. I was brushing my teeth when I saw the text from Nate's mom, Caroline, a woman I'd only met twice, both times at dinners where she smiled too warmly, like she was apologizing for her son's behavior before he even opened his mouth. Caroline, hey sweetheart, are you doing okay? Can we talk? My first instinct was worry. Mothers don't text girlfriends out of nowhere. I called her immediately. Her voice trembled through the line. Maya, honey, I know you don't owe me anything, but I think you need to know what Nate's been saying online. I froze. Online? What do you mean? She sighed. He posted a new video tonight. Something about his toxic ex. He's crying in it, well, fake crying. Says you tried to control him, that you were jealous, that you stole from him when you left last week. My toothbrush clattered into the sink. I haven't even left. I figured, she whispered. But people believe what they see. He always did know how to perform remorse. I pulled the video up while she stayed on the line. There he was, Nate, in our apartment, the couch behind him stripped of pillows, lights dimmed for atmosphere. His voice quivered as he looked into the lens. Sometimes love turns dark. Sometimes you give everything to someone and they just twist it. I tried to help her. I loved her, but she couldn't handle my career. She said she'd ruin me if I ever left. A pause. Then he showed a photo of my duffel bag under the bed, proof she was planning to run. Guess I wasn't crazy after all. My own face flashed briefly in the thumbnail preview, a screenshot from one of his draft videos. I almost vomited. Caroline, I said through clenched teeth, he's lying. I know, she said. He's been doing this since he was a teenager. When he got caught sneaking out, he'd tell people I encouraged it. When he cheated on his last girlfriend, he said she was obsessed with him. He twists stories until he believes them. Something inside me clicked, a puzzle piece I hadn't even realized was missing. All the tiny gaslights, all the staged apologies, all the charm that turned cold the second cameras were off. It wasn't new behavior. It was inheritance. I'm so sorry, she whispered. He learned it watching his father. I didn't know what to say. There's no manual for when someone's parent confirms the monster you've been denying lives in your house. After we hung up, I stared at the video again. Comments were already flooding in. He's such a good guy. Can't believe she did that. She looked manipulative in his old clips anyway. Another clout chaser exposed. My heart pounded so loud I could hear it echo off the walls. This wasn't just betrayal, it was defamation. He wasn't satisfied with controlling me. He had to rewrite the narrative so completely that I became the villain. I texted him. Take it down. Now. 3 dots appeared, then vanished. Then a single reply. You should thank me. People are finally talking about you. That was the moment something in me hardened. The kind of calm that comes right before a storm. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I screen recorded everything. The video, the comments, even his text. Then I called my friend Ava, who worked in PR. She answered on the second ring. Maya? It's late. He posted a video about me. I said flatly. A bad one. Send it. I did. The line went quiet for a long minute. Then she exhaled sharply. Holy okay. We're going to handle this. But first, don't engage online. Let him bury himself with his own words. I can't just do nothing. You won't, she said. You'll do something smarter. His brand thrives on drama. Starve him of it. Meanwhile, we collect receipts. I followed her advice for about 12 hours, until the betrayal went public again. The next evening was Nate's launch party, a small influencer event at a downtown bar to celebrate his new sponsorship deal. I hadn't planned to go, not after the video, but then Caroline texted again. Caroline, he's telling everyone you're showing up to apologize. I thought you should know. My blood ran cold. He was staging another scene. I threw on jeans and a black coat, not to make a statement, but to disappear in the crowd. The bar was dim, filled with that performative laughter that always sounds slightly too loud. I spotted him instantly, center of the room, ring light haloed above him like divine irony. Lila was there too, of course, wearing the same blue shirt from their collab. She was holding his phone while he gestured animatedly, mid-story. People were eating it up. I waited until he turned and saw me. His smile didn't falter, but I saw the flicker in his eyes. He hadn't actually expected me to come. Maya, he said brightly, voice carrying over the music. Everyone, the woman of the hour. Conversations quieted. Phones lifted. I took a slow breath. The hour? Yeah, he said with a practiced laugh. I was just telling them how we're good now. No hard feelings. Right, babe? Babe. Always an order disguised as affection. I looked around the room at the influencers, the interns, the sponsors pretending to care, and something inside me steadied. No, Nate, I said loudly enough for the microphones to catch. We're not good. A ripple went through the crowd. He chuckled nervously. She's joking, am I? I took out my phone, opened the screen recording, and played the clip of his toxic ex confession. The room went dead quiet except for his own voice echoing from the speakers. She said she'd ruin me if I ever left. Lila's jaw dropped. Someone muttered, "Is this live?" When the clip ended, I looked straight at him. "You recorded me crying and kept it as content. You told your followers I stole from you. You lied to everyone here." He tried to grab my phone, but I stepped back. "Don't touch me." "Maya, stop making a scene," he hissed, his charm fracturing like glass. "The scene already exists," I said. "You posted it." Then, from the corner of the room, I heard Caroline's voice. I hadn't even noticed her arrive. "Nate," she said quietly but firmly. "Enough." Every head turned. She walked through the crowd like a woman who'd rehearsed this confrontation for years. "You need to stop lying to these people. You need to stop lying to yourself." His mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Mom, not now," she held up a hand. "You think I don't know what you've been doing? I raised you. I've seen this pattern before. You manipulate, you charm, and when it stops working, you play victim." The silence was suffocating. Lila looked like she wanted to vanish. Someone started recording. Caroline turned to me, voice softer. "I told you on the phone, Maya. I couldn't keep protecting him. I'm sorry for what he's done." For a moment, no one moved. Then Nate's facade cracked completely. "You don't understand," he snapped. "They love me. They need me." "No," I said quietly. "They don't. They just finally see you." I walked out before the cameras could swarm me. My hands were shaking, but my steps were steady. Behind me, voices collided, questions, shouts, his mother's calm reprimand. The night air outside was cold and sharp, but it felt like oxygen after months of drowning to be why morning. The clip had gone viral, not his version, but mine. Someone at the party had uploaded the entire confrontation. The caption read, "Influencer exposed by his mom and ex at his own event skull." It had over 1 million views by noon. For the first time in months, I didn't check the comments. I didn't need to. The truth had finally spoken louder than his edits. The morning after the confrontation felt like waking up in someone else's apartment. The sunlight still spilled across the floor the same way. The fridge still hummed its low mechanical song, but everything inside me had changed shape. I sat at the kitchen table, phone face down, coffee untouched. Every time it buzzed, my stomach lurched like I was bracing for another punch. For weeks, I'd been living on adrenaline, fear, confrontation, self-defense. But now that the noise had hit the internet, all that energy dissolved into something heavier. Exhaustion. The clip from the launch party had spread faster than I could have imagined. I hadn't even shared it. Someone else had. Within hours, it was on TikTok, Twitter, YouTube compilations with titles like, "When a Gaslighter Gets Gaslit by His Mom." I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt exposed. My face, the trembling hands, the red eyes, the crack in my voice was everywhere. Strangers debated my emotions like I was a character in a reality show. Good for her. She looks traumatized. Bet they'll both milk this for followers. I deleted every app from my phone. But that didn't silence the world because the world lives offline too. At work, people stared just a beat too long when I walked by. My manager, who usually greeted everyone cheerfully, just gave me a small nod like she didn't know what version of me she was supposed to address. My best friend, Ava, called every day for a week. At first, I answered. Then I started letting it ring. I didn't have words for the hollow, buzzing space I was living in. It wasn't sadness, exactly. It was like the emotional version of white noise. Evenings were the worst. That's when my brain replayed every detail in slow motion. Nate's smirk, his mother's voice breaking, the flash of a phone camera. The internet's attention span moved on after a few days, but the damage lingered in my body. I'd lie awake with my chest tight, imagining him somewhere rehearsing his next redemption arc, because that's how it goes, right? The villain disappears, posts a cryptic apology about mental health, and people forgive him. I wasn't ready for forgiveness. I just wanted to disappear. One night, about a week later, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, Caroline stood there. She looked smaller than I remembered, like she'd aged years in a week. She held a paper bag in her hands. "Soup," she said softly. I made too much. I wanted to tell her to go home, that I didn't need pity, but something in her eyes stopped me. The same tired grief I saw in my own mirror. We sat in silence at my kitchen table, sipping soup that tasted like gentleness. Finally, she spoke. "He's gone. He packed his things last night. Said he needed to rebrand." I laughed, a dry, bitter sound. Rebrand. Like heartbreak's a marketing opportunity. She sighed. "I'm sorry for everything, Maya. I tried to warn people before, but he's persuasive. He always has been." I wanted to ask what before meant. I didn't. Some wounds are too old to reopen. When she left, she squeezed my hand. "Don't let him convince you this is who you are. You are just the latest person who believed him." That line stuck with me. The latest person who believed him. That night, I opened my laptop for the first time in days. The screen felt hostile, glowing reminders of a world that had moved on that I opened a blank document.
No captions, no hashtags, no audience.
Just space. And I wrote. Not for revenge, not for pity, just to remember what the truth sounded like when it came from me that I wrote about how he made everything a spectacle. How he blurred the lines between affection and manipulation until I couldn't recognize either. How I'd begun apologizing for existing too loudly. The words spilled out faster than I could think. BY Sunrise, I had 10 pages. Messy, raw, unfiltered. I didn't post them. I just saved the file, as for me. In the days that followed, I stayed quiet. I didn't go online. I didn't explain myself. But silence, I learned, doesn't stop people from talking. Someone started a Reddit thread analyzing my body language during the confrontation. Another claimed to be an insider who knew the real story. My DMs filled with strangers telling me they believed me, and others accusing me of ruining his life. I blocked them all. But each message left a small bruise. The isolation wasn't just emotional, it was physical too. Friends stopped inviting me to things because they didn't know what to say. My coworkers treated me like I might break if they mentioned his name. Even grocery runs became strategic. Hat pulled low, earbuds in, pretending not to hear the whispers. One afternoon, I saw a couple in the cereal aisle filming a TikTok, laughing, clinking boxes, kissing mid-shot. And I froze. For a moment, I couldn't breathe, because that used to be me. The staged spontaneity, the constant awareness of the lens. It made me sick to realize how easily I'd mistaken performance for connection. I abandoned my cart and went home. That night, I called Ava. I didn't even say hello, just breathed into the phone until she spoke. Hey, she said gently. You okay?
No, iba disparat.
I don't think I even know who I am without him. You're the same person you were before he turned you into content, she said. You just forgot for a while. We talked until 3 a.m., mostly about nothing. Old high school memories, stupid TV shows, favorite snacks. Normal things. Things that didn't require explanation. That was the first night I slept more than 4 hours. Days blurred into weeks. The internet moved on. New scandals replaced ours. Occasionally, I'd get tagged in an old clip, but I stopped clicking. The less I engaged, the quieter it got, until one morning, an email arrived that yanked me back into his orbit. Subject: urgent, unauthorized use of your likeness. It was from a lawyer representing a production company. Apparently, Nate had sold a compilation of his relationship content to a documentary-style streaming series about modern love and digital authenticity. They were reaching out for permission to use your image. My hands shook as I scrolled. They'd already included stills of me from the videos, laughing, crying, hugging. He was trying to profit off me again. For a moment, I considered ignoring it. But then I remembered Caroline's words. Don't let him convince you this is who you are. I replied. Permission denied. And I will pursue legal action if any of my image or likeness is used without consent. Then, on impulse, I added, and tell your client this. The truth doesn't need a rebrand. After sending it, I stared at the screen for a long time. For once, I didn't feel powerless, just tired. The following week, I got a call from a journalist, not a tabloid writer, but a serious one from an online magazine. She wanted to write a piece about the hidden emotional cost of content creation. She'd seen the viral video, but said she wanted to hear my version, not the spectacle. AT first, I said no. I didn't want to feed the cycle. But then I thought about all the messages I'd gotten from people saying, this happened to me too. Maybe telling the truth out loud wasn't about him anymore. Maybe it was about taking back the story he tried to script for me. I agreed, on one condition. No cameras, no photos, no sensationalism. Just my voice, transcribed into text. When the article came out a month later, it wasn't titled Scandal. It was called The Girl Behind the Screen. It didn't paint me as a victim or a villain, just a person who'd been edited out of her own life and was trying to find the raw footage again. Reading it felt strange, like holding a mirror that finally reflected me accurately. That's when the first real tears came. Not the shaky kind that accompany fear, but the deep, quiet ones that mean you finally stopped holding your breath. I realized I wasn't mourning Nate anymore. I was mourning the version of myself who thought love had to be cinematic to be real. For months, I lived small, morning walks, coffee without my phone, books instead of screens. I started therapy, learned words like coercive control and emotional grooming, words that made sense of the chaos. Sometimes I get flashbacks, a sound, a phrase, the click of a record button. But I learned to breathe through them. Caroline and I stayed in touch. Occasionally, she'd call, updating me quietly that Nate was taking time offline. I didn't ask for details. Some closures don't need witnesses. It wasn't until the leaves started turning that I noticed something new in the mirror. Not confidence exactly, but steadiness. The chaos had stripped everything performative from my life, and what remained was small but solid. Real laughter, genuine quiet, friends who stayed even when I had nothing to offer but honesty. And yet, sometimes at night, I'd still dream of that fake proposal, the whisper in my ear, the laughter in the room. But now, in those dreams, I'd turn to him and say what I wish I'd said then. You don't get to make me the joke. And in the morning, the echo of that sentence would linger like a shield. The collapse had emptied me, yes. But in the silence that followed, I was finally starting to hear myself again.